Hello guys, I'm back. My name is Jeferson Costa and I teach students, graduates and engineers how to work with chemical process engineering and plant design. And today I am here with Jurup to tell me or to share with us a little bit about chemical process engineering, how to do a master abroad, and for sure to talk about the Chem Engineering Weekly that he is his personal endeavor. So to start with, I would like to thank you a lot, Europe, for accepting my invitation. I postponed it because a lot of stuff that I'm dealing with, and you were always very kind with me and agree with the new date. So before I start with my questions, please let's share a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where do you live right now, and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me onto the live. It's an absolute pleasure of mine, especially given how the work you've done through your Jefferson Costa chemical engineering, process engineering YouTube channel, and your social media has been absolutely fantastic. Like the work you provide is absolutely amazing. It's really helpful. So thank you for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And yeah, so my name is Jup. I run ChemEng Weekly, as you said, and I am currently living in London. I was born and raised in London, and I'm currently studying at university. So I'm in my second year of my master's degree in chemical engineering at Imperial College London.
So you are English by born, but your parents are from foreign country, right?
Yes, so my parents are from Punjab
Punjab.
in India. Yeah.
Okay, in India. You did chemical engineering and now you are doing a master in chemical engineering, or it's different? How is your studies?
So it's a little bit different. So in the UK, I applied for something called an integrated masters, where you do 4 straight years and you get a master's degree at the end of the 4 years. So you don't it's not like bachelor's and then masters. It's just straight from undergraduate straight masters. So it's 4 years long. I'm in my second year.
Okay, and we have a lot of information on LinkedIn, on YouTube. What do you feel that is different from the classroom that you do in the UK and what you can learn from the internet? There is any differences? How do you feel?
That's a good question. I think there definitely is differences. I think in the classroom you can only learn so much through lectures. Like you learn what's on the slides and that's it. But when you go on the internet you can see so much more. And this is why I think your channel's so good. Because like through your channel I can learn how to use HYSYS. I wouldn't learn that in lectures. We don't have lectures on specifically on how to learn HYSYS. We'd have lectures on Aspen but on HYSYS. So I think there is a bit of a disconnect, and I think the work you're doing on Jefferson Costa Process Engineer is fantastic because it's bridging that sort of gap.
How was it the first time that you get in touch with me? It was on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. How was it?
So I first found out about your YouTube channel through Emmanuel. So Emmanuel Ortega, the chemical engineering guy, he talked about you in a video back in must have been October 2021. He talked about chemical process engineers, content creators, and yeah, so I've been following since then. And I think the funny thing is, today actually marks a year since the day we first spoke on LinkedIn. I was just checking. So
Yes.
yeah, exactly a year today. Yeah, so I think definitely YouTube was what I discovered first, and then I found out you had Instagram, and then that's how we connected. So yeah,
Oh, very nice. So, a great celebration that we are doing today.
absolutely, absolutely.
I have some questions here that I did for to not forget any one of the questions. The first question that I have is, why did you decide to start sharing content online? It's not easy, it's
Yeah.
not comfortable, and why you decide to do that?
Why did I start sharing content online? I think one of the things for me was it was a bit of a personal challenge. So I'm quite a shy person. I think I wanted to kind of build myself up into a bit more confidence and just, talk and project a bit more. So I think that was one of the things. But the other reasons why I started to share content online was because it lets you be creative. So I had a YouTube channel before this one, which is now since been deleted. But on there, it was just like me exploring my creative side. So I used to talk about like history and that sort of stuff before. So yeah, I think it mostly comes from building my own confidence and just wanting to explore creativity.
You said that you just had a YouTube channel before, but so the chemical or Can Eng Weekly is not your first attention or your first try to internet. Why you change that and why you are keeping with the Can Weekly?
So the first one I had was more of a sort of, I'd say, a test YouTube channel. It wasn't something I was serious about. So it was just something where once in a while, when I wanted to so when I was in high school, and the start of my high school, I would make videos on there. So it was like just a way of me expressing my creativity. It wasn't really something that I was serious about. That's why I got rid of it. But Chem Eng Weekly, I'm definitely serious about, because I feel like with Chem Eng Weekly, I'm providing actual useful content. So that's why I'm keeping on with Chem Eng Weekly. The previous thing was just all over the place. It was part of the journey, part of the learning curve of getting used to using YouTube and that sort of stuff.
Okay. Um, Now you already have 1 year with Can Eng Weekly.
Yeah, I'm going into my second year in June.
Second year already.
Yeah,
Time pass fast, very
really fast.
fast.
Yeah, yeah.
What kind of achievement you think that you got with Can Eng Weekly?
Well, personally, I'd say one thing is it's definitely helped me become more comfortable talking. So that's one thing, definitely, because before I used to be like really nervous, especially just trying to get my point across. So that's definitely one thing. But in terms of university applications, I've been able to help loads of students across the world. So I've been able to help some students get into master programs in the UK. I've helped students get into undergraduate programs, into places such as Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, University of Manchester. So, really good universities that are quite hard to get into. So I think that's probably the biggest achievement for Chem Eng Weekly. I've always said that Chem Eng Weekly, like, it's not about the views. Like, the views are important, but they're not the main focus of the channel, because I want to provide content that's actually useful for people who are applying to university or interested in chemical engineering.
I have asked you to do a presentation about Can Weekly. You will be able to do that?
Yep, I've got it ready.
Okay, but just before you start your presentation, what your friends in the university thinks about you and sharing content on internet and about what you do on internet?
That's a good question. I think when I first told people, they were a bit skeptical. They were a bit confused. They're like, okay, that's interesting, that's new, because the minute you tell someone you share like content on YouTube or the internet, they have a completely different perception about what you do. But when I tell them, oh no, it's educational content and it's not like, different things
Not
that
dancing, all right? It's not
yeah,
dancing.
exactly that. So yeah, so I think once they found out that it's educational, they've all been really supportive. I'm blessed to say that they've been really supportive, and I really appreciate that support. Especially like some of my regular watchers, they're my university friends, and they'll give me feedback, and I think that's just it's heartwarming, to say the least. So thank you so much for handing over to me, Jefferson. I'm going to give a quick insight into myself. Who am I and what is Chem Eng Weekly? So as I said at the beginning of the live, my name is Jup. I'm from Chem Eng Weekly. I'm a second year undergraduate at Imperial College London, studying chemical engineering in the UK. And I've kind of been doing Chem Eng Weekly, which is my YouTube channel, since June 2021. And what is Chem Eng Weekly? Well, it's a YouTube channel where we cover everything chemical process engineering. So we help students get into university, we help give career advice, bring more knowledge about what chemical engineering is and what we do within chemical engineering. And I think it's more from the perspective of somebody who's my age, so someone who's around, early 20s, that sort of age bracket, and what their perspective of chemical engineering is. In terms of what we do, so we cover everything chemical engineering, as I said. So we cover things from like university applications, what careers you can go into, what chemical engineering is, what we study, why we study it. But we also cover stuff about like chemical engineering social applications. So one of the first videos we did was what chemical engineering is portrayed within like movies and media. So we're not just completely focused on like applications and master's programs and student life and that sort of stuff, but also like what chemical engineering is seen outside of the chemical engineering circle. because before starting studying at university, I had very little clue about chemical engineering. I had some sort of idea, but not to the extent that I have now. So I just want to kind of help share that sort of thing about it. And in terms of what I think would be most useful to share on this platform with your audience is the Undergraduate Masters application in the UK. So as I alluded to earlier, in the UK, you can apply for an undergraduate integrated master's program, which is what I'm doing. It's usually 4 or 5 years long. And the process is, as you can see on the screen, usually you choose your universities, you do something called a UCAS application, where it asks you for your English proficiency, a 4,000 character personal statement and referee statement. We've covered all of this in depth on ChemEng Weekly. So if you go to ChemEng Weekly on the YouTube channel, you should be able to see a playlist with all this in there. And then the timeline is usually you apply when you're around, I would say 17, 18. So final year of high school. It's usually the same for around the world. Final year of high school, you apply in around October time. October to January or final year of high school, and then you'll find out your decisions after you sit some admissions assessments. So you have to sit an admissions assessment for Cambridge, for Edinburgh, and I think that's it. And you also have to sit some interviews if you're successful. So Cambridge has an interview, Manchester has an interview, Loughborough has an interview, Imperial obviously has an interview. And yeah, so I've covered all of that in depth on my YouTube channel as well. Then you get your offer, and then once your grades are confirmed for your high school qualifications, so that's like an A level or IB or a AP, something like that. So once they're all confirmed, you get your place, or you have to go through different systems called clearing adjustment or reapply. And then the more important thing that I think most of your viewers would find quite useful is postgraduate masters applications to the UK. So it's pretty much the same process without the interviews. So you choose a university, but the difference is you directly apply to universities. So you have to send an application form with your university transcript, which contains all your grades from your university, 2 references, English language proficiency, so that can be like TOEFL, IELTS, and that sort of thing. So anything that can show that you have proficiency in English language, your CV, a grade sheet, which contains all your grades and the modules you studied at university, and a 1,000-word personal statement, which we will be doing a video on later on this year. I have not got around to it quite yet, but it will be out titled MSc Applications, How to Write a Personal Statement. And the important thing about master's programs is it's not just purely for people who've just finished their undergraduate degree. So it can be somebody who's finished their undergraduate degree, gone into work in industry for 10, 20, 30, 40, however many years, and then they want to come back and get their master's degree. That is still perfectly okay. As long as you can justify it, anything goes. The timeline for applications, again, that's between August and November. Usually you'd have to, I'd say if you're still studying, it's in your final year, August to November, you have to apply. But if you're not studying, then obviously it's any year you choose. August to November, you send off your application, and by January, you'll find out if you've got the place or not. And then if you're obviously applying from industry or after, like after a delay in your graduation from your undergraduate degree, it will be an unconditional offer. But if you're applying in your final year, you usually need like a 2-1, which is roughly a GPA of 4.2, 4.3 to get into your chosen university. And yeah, that pretty much concludes my little presentation. I'm going to stop sharing. And yeah.
Can I do some questions related to the master?
Yeah, absolutely.
So many people from the third world countries like Brazil, India, Malaysia, etc., dreams of working in Europe or in the USA. Talking about the UK, if someone wants to work in UK, do you think that the master allows them to do that? How do you know anything about that?
So in the UK, I can tell you specifically the way it is once you apply for your masters, you'd obviously study for the duration of your masters, usually 12 to 18 months. The terms of the master's degree is a student visa. And on the student visa, you have permission to work. On the terms of the student visa, whilst you're in your master's degree, you can't work, I think it's more than 30 hours a week. But after your graduation, you have a 2-year time period where you're allowed to look for work within the UK. So to answer your question, absolutely. If you're from a country, you know, as you said, like India, Brazil, you know, any country that's not directly within Europe or the UK, you can apply. And after you've completed your master's degree, there is definitely scope for you to work here. Some companies will sponsor you after the finishing of your student visa to work in the UK. So yes, absolutely possible.
And these applications is paid application, or it's possible to have some kinds of subsidiaries or government plans to pay for the students' fees? How is it?
So I think for international students, it's paid. I think it's only paid. There are some schemes where you can, like a scholarship, where they'll subsidize it, but I don't think the government offers that quite yet. I might be wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, it's a paid application process, and usually you only have to pay like administrative fees. It's not that much for the application, but once you get in, there is fees associated with studying for the year, so it can be as high as trying to think in dollars. I don't know in dollars, but it's around 35,000, 36,000 per year, which is a hefty amount of money in pounds.
And you get in touch with many students around the world. Are you able to see a pattern or something that is common to everyone, no matter how they are from?
I'd say definitely. I'd say one thing that I see with any student I talk to about their application is they absolutely love chemical engineering. Like they really want to study it. And I think that's one of the things that automatically carries them through to get into that program. Because whether it's a master's program or undergraduate, undergraduate program, they all tell me about how interested they are in chemical engineering and what they love about it. And I think that's universal. So I had students I helped in the past, I had a student who was from Jamaica, and he was telling me about how he wanted to study chemical engineering because it was going to help his family with creating better infrastructure within Jamaica and helping them he wanted to help out with the distribution of water. I think that was just amazing. So yeah, I'd say one thing that I see in every single student, from no matter where they're from, is they absolutely really want to study chemical engineering. So yeah, the desire is definitely there.
How did you choose chemical engineering?
Good question. So my own path to chemical engineering. So I covered it in depth in a video I released last year on the 21st of July 2022 called My Path to Chemical Engineering, but I'll give you a quick summary. So back in 2014, I was in my first year of secondary school. So I was around, 10, 11, 12. I'd never heard of chemical engineering. I had no idea what chemical engineering was. And I saw a poster on the wall and it said, "Why not Chem Eng?" That's all. That's all it said. And I was thinking, what? That doesn't make sense. Why would you study chemistry and English? Like, they're not related. I thought they weren't, like, it didn't make sense to me. And then I didn't pay too much attention to it. So, oh, it's probably something I could think about later. And then the year after, I had another brush with chemical engineering. And this time, I think it was within a biology lesson. They were talking about like artificial cultured meat and artificial meat and corn products and vegetable substitutes. And I was like, how do you make artificial meat? Where does it come from? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. We learned about something called mycoprotein. And then I spoke to my biology teacher and she was telling me, there's something called a chemical engineer and this is what they do. And I was like, that's actually amazing. That's really, really good. And then at that point, I was like, okay, I want to learn more about chemical engineering. So I did my research and I found out what chemical engineering does and how they're all about like scaling up processes and that sort of stuff. And then the funny thing is, in 2019, I was very, very close to choosing pharmacy as my degree major, actually. So I chose to go and shadow at a pharmacy for 2 weeks because in my mind, I thought a pharmacist is a person who makes drugs from scratch, and that's just not true. Because that's what a pharmaceutical engineer does, right? So in my mind, that's what I thought a pharmacist did. And then I went there and I realized, this is not what I thought pharmacy is. I asked the pharmacist, I was like, where did the drugs come from? Who makes the medicinal drugs? Who helps with all the packaging and the product and the quality control? And she said, that's what pharmaceutical engineers do. And I was like, how do you get there? And she said, you study chemical engineering. And then I was like, okay, that's it. It's decided now. I want to learn chemical engineering because there's so much you can do with the degree. Like, you know, first you had medicine, and then you had water. And then to me, it was, oh, you can also like go into cultured meat and food and textiles. And I think anything that can give you those sorts of skills, it must be a degree worth doing. So that's why I chose to study chemical engineering, because I was just generally interested in the applications of it and how much, like, the knowledge of knowing how everything behind how everything works.
And you did this decision before joining. Now that you are inside, and how much time or how long till you finish your master?
I have another 2 years. I have another 2 years.
2 years. Okay, now that it is only 2 years to finish, did you get what you think about, or it was different?
That's a very good question. I'd have to say yes and no, because on one hand, I definitely am learning about how the things behind how processes work. So like in thermodynamics, we did like the Carnot cycle and the Linde process and all of that stuff, right? And that's great, because that's the sort of stuff I was interested in, like learning why stuff works. But I'd say no as well, because there's a lot of chemical engineering you don't see. So I've learned, for example, I've learned in this year about what's it called, reactor design, and I didn't know that was something that chemical engineers do. I just thought, oh, they've got the design there, they're just interested in how to make it bigger or smaller and sizing and all that stuff. But reactor design was a big part. So I'd say more yes, but a little bit no. I'd say it was a bit unexpected as well.
Okay. And Jurup, now that you are, let's say that you are entrepreneur, you're still in the graduation, but you are already an entrepreneur, and you have 2 years to finish your graduation. What are your plans to start to keeping sharing content, to go to the industry or go to a doctor, be in the academia? What do you think about the future, your future?
Oh, that's a good question. See, I have many options at this moment in time, and I'm not entirely sure, to be perfectly honest. I think there's a number of industries I'm looking at, not just within chemical engineering, but also wider, because obviously chemical engineering is like so multidisciplinary, so you can apply in so many different places. So I think, yeah, I'm not entirely set on my path, whether, you know, what the answer to that question is. So hopefully in the future we'll have a clearer idea.
One of the side effects of sharing content on internet is because you get more visible and more people get in touch with you. It's my case. I have some consultancies because all my activities on LinkedIn. This kind of thing happens with you. People get in touch not only because to work to study abroad, but because they need some kind related to chemical engineering. Can you give us an example? Just one.
I think I have been asked on a number of occasions what studying at Imperial specifically has been like, because Imperial is quite a, you know, it's a dream university for many students. So I'd say that is something that is like slightly detached from what I do. So they've asked me about like student life and, you know, the study modules and the workload and that sort of stuff. But one thing that I do get asked a lot, and unfortunately I can't help with, is like technical content. So I have people saying, oh, I've got a thesis in my master's to do with this, like, can you help? And unfortunately, I'm not very knowledgeable in those areas. So yeah, I mean, I try my best to answer the questions to the best that I can, but maybe it's not always possible.
Okay. Do you you have people to work to study in UK?
Yeah.
You have let's say you do that from your YouTube, or you have some kind of service that you can offer to people that can pay you and have personal assistance. How it works for Chem Weekly?
So for ChemEng Weekly, it's completely free. There's no paid service, because one of the things that I felt was when I was applying, there was like loads of services that were paid, and I was like, as somebody who doesn't have that sort of money to, you know, put aside, like they were asking for thousands and thousands of pounds to put into personal tutoring, I personally don't feel it's right to take money to get people into university because I feel like access to education is very important. So yeah, the main thing about getting people into university is the videos. The videos, they contain literally everything you need to know. They will have all the A to Z of everything. So how to apply, the best way to write your personal statement, how to pick your universities, they're all contained in the videos. Occasionally, if I get somebody who will DM me on Instagram or send me a LinkedIn message and say, look, I've got my application, I need your help, I will help them with it. Of course, I can't dedicate hours and hours and hours because I've got my own workload. But yeah, it's definitely a free service. And it's all through the videos on Chem Eng Weekly. In terms of helping one-on-one applications, I'm not sure I'll be able to do that for much longer because obviously as the further you progress in your degree, the less and less time you have, and especially, you know, once you start with your career. But I'm just hoping that the videos themselves should be enough and to help people get into university. So yeah, no paid service.
Okay, Jurup. Thanks a lot for. I have a last question. What's changed, or what do you think that, in your point of view, we finished the pandemic, and now things probably will change from what we are living in pandemic. Now that you are a person that is before pandemic and after pandemic, what do you think that will change now that pandemic is finished?
In terms of what? Like in terms of myself or?
In terms of yourself and your activities as a chemical engineer.
Okay, good. Okay, that's a very good question. I think one thing about coming out of the pandemic means we have a lot of more information about like things we hadn't thought about before. So as you know, in the pandemic, scale up was absolutely like very, very big buzzword because we needed the vaccines, we needed the medication to be delivered across the globe, especially during the tough times. So I think one thing that probably will change after the pandemic is with the teaching, there'll be a lot more focus on sustainability and disaster management, I'd say, because after a relatively long period of there was no pandemic and everything was fine, and then suddenly you've got a pandemic and it's like, oh, how do we suddenly adjust to that? I think that's definitely one thing that would change. But going back to universities, one thing I think that will definitely change is there will be more online learning. So with universities, before they only ever used to use online learning in the case when a lecturer couldn't come into university and they had to, deliver their lecture online, and many students it wasn't really like often used. But after the pandemic, I think it's become a more commonplace because the lecturer can decide, okay, I'm in a conference this week, I need to deliver my lecture, I can do it online, I can still deliver the content, and I can also help students. So I think, yeah, that's one of the big changes as well.
Okay, now, yes, I finished my list here. Thanks a lot for accepting my invitation. Sorry for all the stuffs and for my bad accent right now. And I would like to ask you to share a final message with people that is not listen to us online live, but that will watch this recording to finish this meeting.
Absolutely. The first thing I'd like to say is thank you so much, Jefferson, for inviting me to the live session. It truly means a lot. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, especially having followed your journey since a year and a half. It's been amazing and very inspiring to see. So thank you. Keep up the great work. That's the first thing I'd like to say. Second thing I'd like to say is don't forget to subscribe to Jeferson Costa Process Engineer. Every subscription counts, every like counts, so make sure you hit that like button. It'll be fantastic. It'll really help the channel. Do check out the social media contacts. Yeah, I would really appreciate it if you went to Chem Eng Weekly on YouTube and checked it out. Watch some of my videos, subscribe if you think it's great. Appreciate any feedback, good and bad. And yeah, I hope I'll be able to carry on providing valuable content through Chem Eng Weekly on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube.
Okay, thanks, Europe, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye-bye.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Bye-bye.